Welcome to part 2 of The Big Loop,
If you have not seen part 1 yet, I would highly recommend watching that before you watch this one.
where we left off. We had gone from our starting point in Montana to the northernmost point of the contiguous US and had just crossed Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and we're about to cross the Mackinaw Bridge into the Lower Peninsula when the car had suddenly stopped in the toll booth. Smoke started to come out from under the hood. Thankfully we were able to push it out and it didn't burst into flames, but it did not start and we had to get it towed. So we got towed to the mechanic. Unfortunately it's Sunday, so couldn't do anything about it that day, and we just had to wait. Now this was where we were going to be staying for the night, so we did have lodging, but there wasn't a lot we could do until the next day, so just had to wait it out. Now Mackinaw City ended up being the most literal tourist trap experience ever, since, we couldn't leave. And we saw such things as this bumblebee statue that we later learned was called Mackatron, copyright something, I don't know. And this might be the most tourist trap to ever tourist trap. So many souvenir shops for random gifts, fudge, random shirts and fudge, and some restaurants and fudge, a lot of candy stores, and also just some of the most cursed souvenirs I've ever seen. Like, who's buying a Gail Lewis mug? I assume this was like a custom print thing, but why? And since Mackinaw is just a tourist trap, everything there is overly pricey. Pretty much the only free thing to do was cornhole, so we played some cornhole. I went to bed feeling kind of upset, but hopeful that all it was just the fusible link here, and that we didn't need to get a new fuse box or something, because then the trip would be dead. When I woke up that morning, first thing I did was head to mechanic, get a slot for the day, and he said we wouldn't be able to finish till noon, so you know what that means. More wandering around. Later in the afternoon, we get news from the mechanic that it's the alternator, and that you can get one tomorrow. Now that's some good progress. Unfortunately, we didn't have a place to stay for the night, but the mechanic did offer us the back lawn of the auto shop, and that's actually where we set up our tent. Then after that, since it was 5 p.m., we still had hours of daylight. Guess we'll go wander around some more, play some more cornhole, because that's all we can do, I guess. So much wandering. Beautiful little town, kind of. Then eventually Nathaniel wanted to go get an edible, so we then walked across a highway to go do that. That just was one of those moments in life where it's like, what am I doing, man? Now also I bought a shirt and a hat there, and for some reason, the bag they gave it to me was basically a miniature trash bag, so this is what I looked like walking around all day. Then we walked back to the plaza. I would have loved to see a time lapse of our whole day just zipping around. We also saw this thing. The Mad Max mobile. Other things we tried to do, learning to gritty. We were kind of bored out of our minds. Back at our classic location of the plaza, apparently there's a laser show every night at 9, so I guess we'll stick around until then to watch it. And eventually it starts. The guy who set it up saw us sitting there, started it, and we immediately leave to go look at the sunset. And get a perfect Instagram shot. I mean, look at this. That is the Instagram shot of all time for Mackinaw City. And then this is what we look like. Then we went and slept in the mechanic's backyard.
We're in a tent. I don't know why we're whispering, no one else is around.
Yeah.
But also it feels right to
Feels
whisper.
right.
It feels right to whisper in a tent. What do you need to yell for? You're in a tent.
On day 7, I woke up with a sense of cautious optimism. I then scraped both my knees. Now, we did have to wait a little bit to get the alternator, so you know what that means. Go back to the plaza and play cornhole. I think I played more cornhole in those few days than I had in, all the rest of my life before then.
Yeah, I think we'll get a He Who Hesitates Masturbates.
But eventually, in the afternoon, we got the call that we got the new alternator set up. How does it feel to be so back right now?
I could stay longer.
We're leaving Mackinaw City.
We are leaving. We have been trapped. I'm gonna replace the in-person audio for this because it's just a bunch of dumb inside jokes, but when we had first gotten the car towed, the tow truck driver said it had smelled dead, and I was like, damn, it's so over, isn't it? And then my friend told me, it's like, that doesn't mean shit. It's just burnt plastic. Yeah, it's gonna smell bad. And I was like, wait, yeah, what is he talking about? It was pretty obvious in hindsight that he was just trying to get me to buy a used car, since I think he owned the scrapyard as well, and was like, hey, if you need a new car, go down to these guys, tell him Ronald sent you, I don't remember his name. And he also thought it was a Buick, so... Point is, it wasn't dead. We were on the road again. Now, we did have to alter the route a bit since we had lost a day. We were going to cut out Ohio, cut straight through Ontario, and go to New York. Also, before I forget, huge shout out to the Mackinaw mechanic for just, like, letting us stay in the yard of the shop. That is crazy. Like, that was amazingly generous. And we passed by Gaylord. You know, it would have been a great place to stop during Pride Month, but unfortunately, we had places to be.
Late stage capitalism photo.
This is the road. As we were about to leave the Midwest, we decided to try one of their staples in Culver's.
Okay.
It tastes like cheese.
Kind of feel like a similar way about this that I do Burger King, where it's like Burger King, it's like, okay. Like, I don't like a Burger King burger, but I do like their onion rings. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I don't know, the burger is definitely better than Burger King, though.
5 out of 10.
Yeah, one time I ate 2 hamburgers in 3 bites.
How does that work?
To clarify, I think it's just like a slightly above average fast food burger, but the cheese curds are pretty good. But then, as we were driving down the highway, the wiper blades went off randomly. I'm like, that's not great. So pull off into an empty parking lot, open up the hood, and fuck. That's not good. And I realized the parking lot we had pulled into was in Flint. Now it is unfortunate to say that the trip dies here.
Okay, switch the pose up.
I mean, like 4 fuses are melted. We needed a new fuse box, and we cannot get that quickly. So we had to cut our losses and head home. Now the video doesn't end here, because I'm gonna still cover how I got home.
Hit the gritty.
Top 10 things to do in Flint, Michigan.
It really feels like you're in Michigan. You know?
It really feels like you're in Flint, specifically. Now, was it a little bit deceitful to act like I had done the entire trip, even though in reality it almost immediately failed? I mean, yeah. I decided I was going to deliver an authentic big loop experience where you think it's going to happen and then are crushed almost immediately. I don't know how people are going to react to this, if they're going to be like mad or disappointed, but remember, no one's more upset about this than I am, because this was months of work just down the drain and my car breaking down. And as I stood there in that parking lot in Flint, I was like, alright, I'm going to make the most of what I have. I'm going to hype it up as though I actually did it, and then going to hit everyone with that whammy on week 2. And then as I started posting about it, saw the comments, I'm like, oh. People were getting like genuinely excited for this. I'm like, oh no. Oh, I feel kind of bad now. I'm sorry. A little bit. So we just got a hotel for a couple of nights, and yeah. Day 8. This was a day where we were just fully stuck in Flint. How crazy if all American cities would be stuck in one that's like genuinely infamous. Like, no one has heard of Flint for good reason. You challenge, drink the tap water in Flint, Michigan. I have the weirdest luck, man. Like, I'm extremely lucky to have been able to do this. And that, like, creating content gave me funds to do this. Kinda sucks that it almost immediately broke down. Because all things considered, could have gone a lot worse. Like, we didn't get stuck on the bridge. The car didn't actually fully explode. We didn't cause any accidents. Like, I need your help. I'm slowly dying. This is it. This is the last thing. We were definitely just trying to make it to Flint, Michigan. And we did. What did we learn about this terrible idea?
Car.
We learned that even if your car's been reliable so far, if it's like 30 years old, probably shouldn't take it around the country, because there will be a next time. Like and subscribe, Big Loop 2025. Say goodbye. This is the last they'll see of you.
Hello. I know you never learned my name. But it's been great being on this adventure with you guys. Death on camera. Thank you.
Well, at least I'm gonna try again next year, and it will be with a newer car. You know, if you want to see this happen, make sure to hang out for another year. Go follow all the other Ocean Man's social medias. And just hang out, watch other videos, and then eventually, you'll be here before you know it. Big Loop 2. So after a full day in Flint, it was time to head home. Now, Nathaniel will be heading home via the Flint airport. In case you're wondering what that looks like, very empty and sad. But I would be driving back with the car on a trailer attached to a U-Haul. And my dad actually flew out to help me do this, so, you know, that was hugely appreciated. You can see where I got my propensity for driving long distances across the country, considering he was willing to do this. And in the morning, drove the car into the trailer for one last ride, because during this drive, the windshield wipers were freaking the fuck out, things were beeping at me, and, it did not start again after I got it on the trailer. Now it's time for the 4-day slog back to Montana. And now a lot of people are probably like, what, you thought your 30-year-old Subaru was gonna get all the way around the United States? And yeah, I mean, it's been a reliable car all my life. It's never had any major issues like this that I can think of. I've been on a couple pretty long road trips recently, so I figured, yeah, I could probably make it across. Now, I did think that something bad was probably gonna happen. Not quite as bad as this, and I thought we were at least gonna get to the East Coast before I was gonna encounter any major trouble. It's unfortunate. What are you gonna do? The haters said I couldn't do it, and what do you know, great call from the haters. Oh yeah, by the way, my car works again now. It's up and driving again, so I don't know. Take that. Drove past a climax, but you know, I think one climax is enough for this trip. This section of the video is just gonna be some reflection along with some things I saw on the road that are maybe mildly interesting. Now, I've heard claims that Michigan has the worst roads in the United States. I would hear that and be like, okay, you know, that's just like them trying to be special. Like every state says they have the worst weather and whatnot. But no, I'd say Michigan's are definitely noticeably lower in quality than most states. And after a few hours of driving, finally happy to get out of the cursed state of Michigan. And hey, look, Indiana U-Haul in Indiana, wow. Well, I'll drive through here a little bit, pass through Gary. You know, I'm really hitting all of the best cities in America on this trip. Shortly after that, pass into Illinois. And we do kind of a loop around the Chicago area, see some questionable billboards. And at one point I was able to see the Chicago skyline, so that might have been the highlight of my day. Something they have out here that I hadn't encountered before was like these highway oases? Oases? I don't know what the plural is. From what I could tell, it's mostly just like a rest stop, truck stop with a food court, and some of them are basically like an airport terminal laid across the highway. So you can watch cars go under you while you eat. This wasn't a very thrilling drive. Then that night we kept going, crossed over into Wisconsin, passed by one more world's largest thing, this time the world's largest Culver's. Which, like, yeah, sure, I don't know, it just looks like a slightly bigger Culver's. Ended up staying the night just outside Madison. And the next day was more of the same, starting out driving through Wisconsin. Now, I didn't think I was going to enjoy Wisconsin's scenery as much as I did. Saw new billboards for all the touristy, trappy things in Wisconsin, like the Dells. Look at those water slides. Honestly, until the car broke down, I think the trip was going pretty smoothly in some ways. You know, we hadn't had any, like, major hiccups. I'd say our main issue was just arriving places late, which honestly I think was going to really start to wear on us. The first 4 days, we had gone pretty much non-stop. The earliest we had ever gotten to the place we were staying was, like, 9. So thankfully we've had a break on that 5th day, but, like, I don't think I could have kept that pace up. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have remained as sane as I am right now had I actually gone through with it. Also, we were not eating great. Considering one time we had not eaten for like 6 hours and then all we had was a watermelon. It's kind of amazing we actually did make it that far. And I was really enjoying the scenery of the driftless area in Wisconsin here. We cross over the Mississippi River into Minnesota, stop at this cool rest area, see a heron. Probably the highlight of the day right here. Oh man, the drive's a slog. Pass through the hills, and then it's all downhill from here. The rest of the day would just be driving through the corn, the flat of southern Minnesota. See our first billboard for Wall Drug. Yay. Late in the afternoon, finally cross over into South Dakota. Stay the night in Sioux Falls. get up the next morning to drive across South Dakota. That's what we'd be doing. And speaking of driving across South Dakota, reminds me of another road trip I did driving halfway across the country in which I had major car problems. Check that video out if you've never seen it before. Today, it's South Dakota, it's corn. I honestly think I enjoyed driving through North Dakota more. Maybe it's because I drove through South Dakota all the time as a child, so you know I've seen everything. Except for the statue that wasn't here when I was a child. I hadn't stopped that yet, so that was cool. Neat little area. Wow, look at hill, look at river. Wow. I'm trying to make things exciting here, but the truth is, this was just like a slog back. Get on the road and drive, and we kept driving, and we passed by the 1880 town, which kind of ruins the immersion when there's a giant Conoco sign. I mean, it's not like Conoco existed back then. I appear to be mistaken. This is actually perfectly accurate. Saw some Badlands. That's the sound your brain makes when you drive through South Dakota. Eventually reached Rapid City, which is where I'd be staying for the night. Saw the world's largest bronze hamburger, which... Hey, look, it's the Taco Bell that the European mind cannot comprehend. I don't know if anyone remembers this tweet, but yeah, it's in Rapid City. I ate Taco Bell there. And I looked over at this water park, which I visited all the time as a child. Been a while since I'd last been there. 11 years, actually, which is half my life? What the fuck? Time moves fast because I'll be attempting this road trip again. And I'll be like, damn, wait, it's already happening. Holy shit. Remember the last couple times I've been there, they said they were gonna expand it out, which they never did. That's good to know some things never change. But they added 5 new hotels. And then there's the next and final day. Be heading home. We drove past the Black Hills, which I gotta say really carry South Dakota in terms of coolness and natural beauty and whatnot. Because without them, North Dakota, I honestly think is a more interesting state. Of course, the original plan was to visit the extreme points of the contiguous US. We would be seeing one more extreme point of the US, that being the center. Located in Belle Fourche. Actually, it's not technically in Belle Fourche, it's technically in someone's field, but this is where they put the monument to it. And this is our last, like, little touristy thing of the trip. Shortly after that, we left South Dakota, crossed into Wyoming, and shortly after that, we left Wyoming and crossed back into Montana. Finally back in my home state. Granted, there was still hours of driving left to do, because it's not like I live in Broadus. Speaking of it, here's the most interesting thing in Broadus. Speaking of Montana, and a trip that actually went well, last summer I visited all of the state parks in Montana, and that is by far the biggest video I've done to date, so check that out. I'd really appreciate that. Anyways, I think this is where I wrap up talking about the big loop. So I hope you like this series, as short as it ended up being. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, because remember, next year, I'm trying again with a new car and lessons learned from this time, so it'll be better than this year could have ever been. In the meantime, you can check out the other social medias in the description. Probably gonna be posting a lot of pictures and stuff related to this on Instagram and Twitter, and talking about some stories on Twitch that I didn't have time for here, and also check out some other videos I made. And in the time I would have been on this trip, I was able to do another trip. Expect that sometime next month. That should be pretty fun. Once again, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next year.